Hey, everybody, this is Rob Botts here, hosting the Connection Loop podcast. And we have a special guest on today. It is going to be Charles Chen, and he is VP of Revenue Operations over at ACV Auctions. ACV is a high growth technology company that provides a very vibrant digital marketplace for wholesale vehicle transactions and data services. Fun fact about him that he can maybe elaborate on a little bit. He is a black belt, in fact, a Six Sigma Master black belt. I have no idea what Six Sigma Master means, but I know what a black belt is. So that's pretty impressive. So, Charles, welcome into the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
We're so happy to have you. And you're up in Seattle, as we know. So talk to me a
Yeah.
little bit about Seattle up there. What are people missing not being in Seattle that don't live there? Ooh.
Oh, wow. We do have the water. I don't know if you know, but the folks know that, but our drinking water is probably one of the best in the world because we have abundant supply during wintertime, right? Summertime here is truly God's country. Right now is about 75 degrees, sunshine and zero humidity. And that's our typical temperature here for the summer. So there is a trade-off, right? We do have months of gray and humidity and rain, but during the summertime, it is the most wonderful place to be. It really is. Yeah.
See, I would agree with that because growing up on the East Coast and
Hmm.
living currently in Los Angeles, I always tell people here in LA and they never believe me. I'm like, look, the East Coast has some of the nicest weather you'll ever feel. And they're like, wait a minute, what? This is Los Angeles. I said, no, follow me here. When there's a storm back east, a thunderstorm, a rainstorm, that next day when the storm clears out is some of the most beautiful weather you can
It
ever
is.
imagine. So I would imagine
Yeah.
same thing up there.
Yeah, it is. We don't get thunderstorms here. We
Yeah.
do get persistent rain here, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I live in Michigan. I live in Philadelphia area, Connecticut area.
Yep.
When I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, you're familiar. So
yeah.
talk to us about, I always like to start with people's journey. So, for yourself and for the folks
Mhm.
out there, you've worked with some pretty well-known companies. I think people know who General Electric are. I think they know who JP Morgan Chase is. I think they know who Microsoft is, Amazon. So talk to me about just how did you get to ACV auctions? Like what was the path for you in terms of because I know you've had, you have financial backgrounds, you have SaaS backgrounds. So talk to me just about that journey for you.
Yeah, yeah. So this may surprise you. The long time ago, I thought I was going to be an engineering professor, like my
Hmm.
dad. As I share with you, I'm a first generation immigrant. My dad was a federal government sponsored scholar from Taipei to come to the U.S. to study engineering. He's got his second master's degree and his PhD in Cal Berkeley, and went back to Taiwan to become a professor in the government official. I thought that was a path for me too. Very fortunately, went to go to University of Michigan, and after my master's degree, applied for the PhD program and decided not to go forward with that. I worked at Ford for 3 years as an engineer and then went back to business school, right?
Yeah.
The thought at that time was to go back to the auto industry and run corporate strategy one day. I've always loved cars. So being at ACV auctions where we transact cars, there is a there is a there is an outcome to this story here. But I graduated after 9/11. As you and many people remember, the market was tough after that, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Very, very fortunate GE gave me an opportunity. And that's the first time I cut my teeth in sales operations.
Yep.
Went to JP Morgan Chase because I wanted to live in Seattle. I actually picked, I actually opened the map first time in my life after being in the US since I was 15. I was in my early 30s. I opened the map and say, where do I want to live? That's not stipulated by school, graduate school, or a job. I picked Seattle. That's
Mm.
how I picked Seattle.
You might
Yeah,
be one of the only people ever to exist to open up a map and purposely go, unless you're, someone that loves the music scene, creative culture up there, things like that. But that's pretty funny though. That's good.
yeah, yeah. I came out here and visited my classmate and roommate at business school, right? And I just fell in love with the city. I was at JP Morgan Chase for 4 years, and I was at Microsoft running joining sales operations. And there's a critical path that led me to where I am today. So when I was at GE, being Six Sigma Green Belt certified was a company criteria. Jack Welch mandated that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. When I was at JP Morgan Chase, through the help of others and through the projects, I became Six Sigma Black Belt certified. But when I was at Microsoft, Microsoft is just a huge company full of talented people, right? There's an inflection point in my career. I decided to say, what is a skill set I really want to be at a level of proficiency that very, very few people can earn this level of certification? It's about continuous improvement, right? Some people, like that classmate of mine I told you about, he earned the highest level of CFA certification after we both graduated from Yale, right?
Wow.
So for me, I wanted to earn my Six Sigma Master Black Belt certification, but here's the clutch. I want to apply that to sales. I want to apply that to sales. So the journey of that is my third role at Microsoft. We have an internal consulting group focused on continuous improvement, staffed with Six Sigma Master Black Belts and Black Belts from some of the most revered countries and companies in this discipline, like GE, Motorola. 15 people went to the Master Black Belt program. Only 3 earned their MBB certification, and I was so fortunate to be one of them.
Oh.
And what made that unique, what made myself extremely proud of that, earning that, is this: to earn your MBB at Microsoft, Master Black Belt, you got to go through 2 weeks of class and pass a huge exam. You got to pass the exam. That is just a starting point. Then you got to run 2 Master Black Belt projects certified by 2 Master Black Belts with a finance director agreeing to the benefits you provided Microsoft in email. 2 projects. You got to coach at least 6 people to earn their Green Belt or Black Belt certification, and you need to teach 8-hour classes. Rob, that together is 18 points. Those are minimum requirements. You need to get to 26 points to earn your MBB.
Wow.
What made earning that certification tough on Microsoft is this: Microsoft is an insanely innovative company. They're always at the leading edge of technology, and also, as a very successful SaaS company, their margins are healthy.
Yep.
So how do you drive business development with other stakeholders to allow you to go in there to revamp their process, especially their sales process, with quantifiable benefits that you can give back to the company? And that's what I did. So both my MBB level projects were focused on sales, and that led to my subsequent job with inside sales, being the director of global sales processes, and then subsequently had the good fortune to join Amazon only for 6 months. But why I came here is this: ACV Auction had 3 criteria that really attracted me here. Number one, my manager. He is a very magnetic leader, right? Just on the phone, you can tell whether you have a connection. And very, very fortunately, I had that the moment we started talking. Number 2, back to cars.
There it is.
Right? Back to cars. We transact cars on a digital platform that provides insane efficiency for our clientele. But third piece is Mike Waterman, my manager, gave me the full breadth to build up and lead revenue operations with my own vision. Yeah, when you have that kind of opportunity ahead of you, you need to capitalize. And that's why I'm here today.
It's such a great story. I mean, so many rich details in there, especially the minimum requirements. When you hear the phrase minimum requirement, you're thinking, oh, it's just a minimum requirement. That minimum requirement that you had over there was like a maximum requirement times 20 anywhere else, which is that level of standard, right?
Yeah, and that's where a lot of my teammates that are amazing Black Belts couldn't get to that Master Black Belt certification. It's not because they weren't capable. Is the minimum requirement on the 2 core projects you've got to run. Being such a successful company with high margins, people don't immediately think that, oh my God, I got to get this KPI to a certain threshold. I got to bring in experts to help me do that, right? So we really had to go do our own business development to get to even earn the table stakes, to show them how their sales motions are running, and then lock in the KPI and improve it in partnership with the process owner themselves. Yeah, I think that's that part that many of my teammates in that internal consulting group
Hmm.
are immensely proud of. Yeah,
That's great. That's great. That's such a rich tapestry there. Um, you have a quote that I wanted to talk to you about. So you
yeah,
mentioned taking on accountability with clarity seems so simple, yet the challenge is in the execution. Just unpack that a little bit.
yeah. So, Rob, what's your background in like forecast management? You have a background in sales, if I may ask.
Yeah, yeah, long time in sales. Forecast management, I could say, look, I think it's gonna be sunny tomorrow in 75 because we're here in LA. I'm gonna bank my life on that. No, I'm kidding. No, total sales my whole life. A lot of animation sales, studio
Yeah, yeah,
animation,
right.
stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, you have to be able to look at the numbers, understand where your ICP is, what it looks like for the year, what are the challenges, where do you want to go, all that kind of good stuff. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So accountability and clarity to me means this: if we just focus on forecast,
Yep.
if I'm a salesperson, I have a quota.
Mm-hmm.
I have a segment of customers. If I'm customer segment based,
Yep.
or I have an area if I'm area coverage based,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
How do I get to my quota? I need to forecast. I need to generate pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
That forecast and pipeline, whether I do it monthly or quarterly in QBRs, is how I lay out my 30, 60, and 90-day plan. And once aligned with my manager, I got to execute.
Got it. Got it.
I
You've
call
got
the
it.
customer. I call the customer. I visit the customer. I do business development. I overcome objections. I
Mhm.
put customer needs at the center, and I proactively resolve problems for the customer. Right.
Yeah.
But the thing about that is, you notice what I just explained is a process.
Mm-hmm.
I forecast. I generate pipeline. That's a process. I execute. That's a process. I do quarter end business reviews. That's a process.
Mm-hmm.
Process require people to run it.
Yes.
And when we don't have clarity and accountability on that,
Mm-hmm.
we end up doing a lot of this. We end up doing, oh, I didn't know that was the expectation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No, for us to grow, this is your target. And for example, here's a very practical one I know you can relate to. If my annual quota, let's just say, is $30 million of SaaS revenue,
Mm-hmm.
what should be in my forecast combined with my new pipeline, right?
Right.
I hope you and other people would agree, it cannot just be $30 million
No, no, no.
because there's a bunch in there, especially in the pipeline, even with existing customers that are at
Of
risk.
course. Yes. Yes.
You've got to have exceptional coverage, meaning sometimes two opportunities to one, or
Mhm.
if your quota is 30, you really should have 40 to $45 million in total forecast plus pipeline and clearly mark out which ones are risk and why, and
Right.
how we're going to do to address that. That's an example of accountability.
Yep. Yep.
You
Yeah, and
got to be
that's
clear, right?
yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Clear vision, everyone on the same page, understanding where the goals are, and not only that, understanding how to get there and make sure
how to
everyone
get there,
knows how to get there together, which is big.
right? Right.
Um, you mentioned humans aligning in the process, which
Yeah.
is obviously so important. The age of AI is upon us. It's been
Yes.
upon us for a little while now, right? And probably a couple years, really started coming to the forefront. Now AI is pretty much on the tip of everybody's tongue.
Yeah.
So for you, looking at AI, how has it been utilized specifically within ACV that you've
So
seen?
I'm going to give you a pretty practical solution we're testing right now. And by the way, I'm geeked. I'm geeked as heck about this. So um, I'm going to share with you a prior example that I ran as one of my master black belt projects. How inefficient that was
Hmm.
compared to machine learning and AI. How much we can accelerate that, and which is totally transformational. And you can probably tell I'm getting really excited just talking
Oh yeah,
before I even bring it up, right?
your heart rate is
So
going up. I think
yeah, my heart rate's
you're
totally
sweating a
going up.
little bit, I
So
think. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, so back in 2014, I had um, with the sponsorship of a few key leaders within Microsoft, I got invited in um, to partner with them to address a key part in the SaaS sales cycle. In SaaS, you and I know leads. You and I both understand leads come in.
Hmm.
Leads got to be converted to opportunities.
Hmm.
Opportunity gets incubated and grown as seeds. add additional projects, do a proof of concept, and then we close and revenue starts coming in, right? Lead to opportunity conversion rate. Lead to opportunity conversion rate. I can't disclose the exact number, but back then it wasn't as high as we want.
Yep.
And we all believe we're leaving a lot of it on the table. So what we did was I sat down with the sales leaders. I go, if we cannot address lead quality, that's out of our scope. That comes from marketing.
Yep.
Within our part, what can we address? Objection handling. We do not do objection handling well enough. Okay, what do we believe affects objection handling? A lot of input factors we started talking about. Time of the day we call the customer mood and tone.
Yep.
Duration of the account executive in role, what's their maturity. We listed 10 or 15 factors.
Yep.
Which one do you and I know that's most important? Yep. Right? Rob, we use manual data collection. We did passive analysis. You know what the number one thing we found out that caused objection to handling? There was 2 factors. It was not. These 2 trump everything else. Number one was this. When the conversation starts, did you put customer needs at the center of that conversation? Yep. The moment that happened, 8 out of 10 times, objections dissolve by themselves. And then the second piece, factor 2, is when customers eventually they do have an objection, do we peel the onion and ask multiple whys to get to the root of that objection? Sometimes you need to peel a bit to really understand what the customer's challenge is, right? The moment we did those 2 combined, I'm so proud of those sales leaders. By the way, I want to make sure, even though it was my Six Sigma project, but it was all partnership with them. We converted lead conversion rate for Office 365 leads by 70% from baseline without changing anything else. 70% from baseline. So I'm using fictitious numbers. If we're converting 10%, we're at 17% just by doing that. But the problem with that, wow, that sounds really good. Yeah. But from project start to project end, because this is passive analysis, dude, it took 3 months. In the modern day where you and I live in SaaS cycle, that is way too long. That is way too long. So in ACV, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. We're testing something really amazing right now. So when the car is launched on our platform, we have a high bid and we have a floor price. When they don't meet, there's no sale, right? Sure. We have an amazing outbound call team that calls the buyers and the sellers and asks them to move forward towards each other and close the deal.
Interesting. Yeah.
How do you know which deal has the highest propensity of closing? How do we know that? What kind of has the customer in the past have a good sell-through rate, right? Yeah. How many bids does this deal already have? And a few other factors I can't quite disclose, but you know what I'm saying right here. These kind of data, we are using machine learning and AI to dynamically analyze them. And we are proactively updating that queue for my amazing IPBIT team to prioritize. We're about to launch a pilot on this, but Rob, this is what AI and machine learning, in this case, is a bit more machine learning, but we're using real-time data to maximize potential for closing this transactional deal. Whereas in the Six Sigma old world, it'll take me 3 months just to test the proof of concept. Is real-time versus 3 months of lead test. This is the cutting edge of this. And in addition to that, what the ACV auction does is, like, you and I know that we pride ourselves on having the most transparent, the most honest condition reports. So our business model is this. When in the past, customers need to go to a physical auction to buy cars.
Sure. Yep.
We make that all digital. They get onto our platform. They sell their cars on the platform, but when they sell, we have a crew of amazing vehicle condition inspectors that goes there, take 34 pictures,
Mhm.
scan the entire underground, listen to the engine. We even have AI that's analyzing the engine sound to pinpoint where the issue is, and we disclose all that in the
Beautiful.
condition report.
Great.
That's an example how we're leveraging AI. We learn, and we can detect things that human sometimes with intuition
Mhm.
cannot detect.
See,
Yeah,
mhm.
so AI is really the cutting edge, my friend, and it will be foolish if our other friends in our industry don't capitalize.
See, that's such a great example of unpacking such a Venn diagram that we have happening right now. We have
Mhm.
humans and AI going like this, and it's just an intersection. And it's how do we take the AI and put it in the smartest place possible for not only us as human beings,
Yeah.
but it's like being a coach and seeing a player and utilizing their talent. Oh, that player is really good at something like this. We should get them to do this.
Yeah.
So the way that you guys are using the AI is incredibly smart. And it's actually invigorating and supporting the actual human beings that are in there doing their thing.
Yeah.
So it's a nice synergy and symmetry that you have going because that's the biggest thing with AI. It's so powerful, it's learning so quickly. There are a lot of applications, but what is the application that makes sense for the whole health of the body? You
Hmm.
know, what makes sense? So I
Right.
think
Right.
what you're driving to, and I mean, look, cutting down that kind of time is so important. And also getting you very accurate information is also very important. And it's
Yeah.
important for that buyer on the other side. So that's amazing. Great use cases.
Yeah. It sometimes it does buck a bit of human intuition,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Um, may I ask, did you see the movie Moneyball?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, Brad Pitt, right? True story.
Yep.
And as you remember, in there at the front, when the general manager of the Giants wanted to introduce this statistical model,
Hmm.
he had a hard time with some of his scouts because
Yes.
their intuition is very different.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
in fact, as we were investigating this machine learning model
Hmm.
to prioritizing the unclosed deals in the queue, like one of my teammates who's the VP of that division asked some really good questions, and those questions was based on his 30 plus years of intuition in the industry.
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, my dear," and my thoughts was, "Hey, what I want you to know that amongst all these factors that this model is going to use, you are pinpointing at this factor.
Yep.
But what this model does is it looks at all the factors as a whole and analyze that opportunity at that time and go,
Mhm.
I get it. You think this factor is really important, but for this customer, amongst all the other factors, this is actually less of a factor for him. It may be for the other customer, but
Right.
that's what machine learning and AI can do for us. Real-time dynamic analysis,
Hmm.
and it's constantly learning. Yeah,
And
yeah,
specific analysis, breaking it
yeah,
away from the group to saying that specific thing because with Moneyball, it's almost like a phrase that comes to mind that scouts use a lot, the eye test.
yeah,
The eye test. And like you see someone at bat, I like their stance, I like their swing. I like the way that player carries themselves,
yeah,
all the kind of gray area stuff, right? But then the AI gives you the hard, cold truth on those things
mhm,
because do you want to have one player that gives you X number of hits for X amount of dollars, or do you need a combination of multiple players that gives you the same thing, same bases? It's all just a way of getting to something that not only makes sense, but in a way that the AI adds it up and it makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like that's where there's that marrying of the human part of it, but the statistical part of it and the specific statistical part of it you're talking about is just it's beyond reproach in terms of its
yeah, yeah.
effectiveness.
It really is effective, and a lot of this, I do believe that as we are on this journey of ACV,
Yeah.
um, this tying back to my Six Sigma background, right? Because through the journey of green belt, black belt, and master black belt, understanding statistical models
Mhm.
is a fundamental table stakes in this discipline.
Yep.
What are the inputs? What is the output you're looking for?
Mhm.
To really leverage AI and machine learning, well, we need to be very clear on what is the output we're trying to measure,
Mhm.
what kind of data it is. Is it a count metric, meaning is it yes or no output outcome, or is it like we can cut it up in many ways, meaning 3 divided by 5.5. We can cut into many layers, right? And the input factors, what are the input factors? Is it binary input factor, yes or no, 1 or 0? Or this is also on the scale of the inputs. The fact that my team and I understand and look at things that way, that allows us to accelerate when we're deciding between a machine learning model or an AI model, and really set it up very quick and test it.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is that recently a fellow executive was asking me about background, and he says, what is something you can share with me? I go, I think a lot of people will say, oh, you're so successful or blah, blah, blah. I was talking to this fellow executive, but what I said was, as I reflect on my own career, I got here because I had a lot of help.
Right.
I
That's
did.
great. That's great.
I got here. I learned my Six Sigma. I earned my Six Sigma certification. It's not because of all of me. It's because the executives, other divisions of Microsoft, opened the door and I came in. Right. Their directors, senior director, GMs work with me to help make a fundamental impact to the company. My current team, like the AI model and machine learning discussions I just shared with you, my current team are proactively looking at this right now. My boss gave me the trust. He invited me to join his leadership team, right? We all had a lot of help, and I did too, right? And we got to get back a little bit.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's great. Yeah, we're all, you know, self-made is a interesting term because
Yeah.
a portion of it is, but the other portion is the people that you've run into in life, the people you've learned from, the experiences you've gained, and
Right.
knowledge you've gotten from different areas and different people. It's all part of that big experience of life that kind of
Mm-hmm.
forms, who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, your background, if people out there watching this that are in the sales background, they're in the processes background, they're in the financial side, the SaaS side. You have such a rich experience in processes and trying things and implementing them and looking at data. What would be if you could, just a couple pieces of advice for people that are in that right now? Like, what to kind of remind themselves of to keep in focus as they're in that in those areas.
Yeah, I would say these are the two things that always jumps out at me. And number one thing is, if process is truly everywhere. You and I tying our shoes,
Hmm.
driving to work. We don't think about it's a process because the way our brains function is amazing. I don't know if you know, 90% of our most critical thinking happens in that tiny layer at the front of our brain. When we are learning new things, you notice that we are exhausted at the end of the day, even though we haven't exercised, we've just been thinking all day. It's because that front layer has been burning 90% of the calories. We as human nature want to reserve that part of our brain for critical life-saving decisions and push other repetitive processes to the back of our heads. So process is everywhere. The way I boot up my computer in the morning, the way I call a customer. In fact, a month ago, I did business development with one of our critical sales partners, right? And I didn't, looking back, actually there was a process to that. As long as there's a process, we can improve it. We can improve it. That's one. But the second part about processes is this. Processes require humans to run it. The perfect process with no alignment or commitment is useless.
Yep.
Continue. Excellent. Sometimes perfection, you probably heard, perfection is the enemy of excellence. Some people want to improve something so much that this is the perfect solution I know, but no one's bought into it.
Mhm.
Why do that? Why don't we build it with the people who need to run it and improve it iteratively? Their support and their support reflects a age-old adage of this that can be quantified in this equation. Impact equals to solution quality multiplied, not multiplied by acceptance. Multiply. If acceptance is zero, impact is zero, right? So I just really would encourage people that think about sales processes, think about those two combined. we want to make an impact, but we do it in partnership with people. The qualitative and the qualitative part meaning the metrics, and the qualitative part meaning the people, the emotions, those need to be assessed together, and that's how we move forward and win together, right? So yeah,
Q squared. Q squared is what that would be.
right, exactly,
I
yeah,
think that's your I think that's your the name of your new method. Q squared. Just have that right up there like that. That'd be perfect.
yeah.
Um, you know,
I'll take that.
it's interesting because the idea of perfection here at Dubb, as people know that have seen our Connection Loop podcast before, we're all about video and sales. We send
Mhm.
actionable, trackable videos. That's how we do it. Fantastic way to communicate. Data backs that up. But we always tell everyone when you're getting ready to record a video for someone, it's not about being perfect. Because if you're trying to record that, in quotes, perfect video, you're never going to get it out. There's always going to be a reason for you not to send it. So
Right.
it's about the beautifulness of the imperfect that you're
Yeah.
seeing. Because all of
Yeah.
us are now more than ever, I think quirkiness of our personalities, how we are, it's more celebrated now than ever in terms of people want, the personal is the professional. And I think a lot of that really applies kind of to what you're talking about. Because when you talked about these processes, none of them are probably perfect, but they're all processes. They are in process. So we're
Hmm.
all works in process, and so are these things that we
Yeah.
constantly need to be learning and adjusting for. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. If I can add just one more tried and true advice that I've learned over the years, right? And Rob, you can, I know you can relate to this. We go to a meeting
Mm-hmm.
because in the rush, the people who own the agenda didn't have a very clear agenda. So we start talking.
Mm-hmm.
You notice 8 out of 10 times the conversation goes all over the place. At the end, we walk away with, I'm not sure what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Did we make any quantifiable progress? Probably not. Does this happen? Of course it does. It's natural, right? But if this is all the time, then we're really making very to no impact with a lot of people time investment.
Yes.
So for people in the sales or like in the process discipline or combining them, the people who's the meeting owner, take a little bit of time, just write this process down in 2, 3, or 4 steps. Step one, what are we doing? Process two, who was doing that? Then we can drive focus in that meeting. Hey guys, now it's on paper. Step number three is that interaction point with the customer. That's when we screw up the most. Now let's peel that, let's dissect that a little bit. And naturally during that conversation will start going all over the place too. But now you have that process. Let them go a bit and bring it back to these steps. It drives focus and drives outcome, right? Yeah, and I just I just experienced a lot of that. The inefficiencies of lack of process discussions in the past, right? So yeah,
Without experiencing the inefficiencies, how do you make it efficient? I guess
yeah,
sometimes you don't know what you're missing, right?
right.
So just a couple more questions for you. One, what's your personal North Star in your life? Like what keeps you looking at that North Star for you personally?
It changed after I have kids.
Yep.
Yeah, so I have a 12-year-old daughter,
Mhm.
10-year-old son. Um, Other than my mom, I would say those two plus their mom are the love of my life, right?
Yeah.
Um, for my personal North Star is this. Number one, I want to raise them to be good, kind human beings.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, have a sense of justice,
Mhm.
and but and also have a sense of where their own boundaries are at, and it's okay to let other people know when that boundary is crossed a bit.
Sure.
Advocate for themselves,
Yes.
right? I think for the other personal North Star, um, if any of my friends or family members who had the opportunity to see this podcast, I think they can relate. They will know where this is coming from. Is this um, as a first generation immigrant, my parents didn't really full time immigrate over here with my sister and I. So my dad is 82 and my mom is 78. My dad when we immigrated over here, he was already a full-time professor and a budding government official in Taipei. Coming over here, he would need to start anew. So he stayed back, provided for my sister and I selflessly while we went to school, grad school, and all that stuff, right? So for me, I like I'm so grateful for that, but at the same time, I don't want that cross country distance with my own kids. In fact, my parents are in Taipei right now, so I see them twice a year, and I need to. It's a 13-hour flight one way, 11-hour the other way, and crossing the Pacific. We're at opposite ends of the Pacific Ocean. So for my future, I don't want that kind of distance with my kids.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
that's for me. And hopefully that my son grows up and wants to play golf with me. That's just a minor ask, my friend, and like my cars, and that's it. And I get to travel the world with my wife. So this, my answer to you is not necessarily career based. I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
It's about personally what I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I wanted. Yeah, no, that's great. And I'll say this about golf. You mentioned golf. For golf out there, and I've hacked around over the years. Basketball was more my sport over the years, but
Mhm.
but golf, fun to play, right? But golf is probably one of the hardest sports to be good at because it seems like more than anything, and every sport requires concentration
Mhm.
and technique and learning about the environment and being able to adapt like everything else. But if you pull your head up just a smidge, that ball is not going to go where you want it. And you are with golf. You could have an amazing day, right? Then you could have a very rough day.
Yeah.
So even the best of the best of the best in the world have days where they're like, "Oof, that was tough,"
Yeah.
and that just shows you how tough golf is.
Yeah, my wife is an amazing, is a really excellent basketball player. So she would really appreciate meeting you, right? And
That's
my
awesome.
father-in-law was one too. I mean, he's still alive, but he's
Yeah.
in his late 70s, so he can't really dunk the ball anymore. But like, I know what you mean because I'm about 6 inches taller than my wife. But
Yeah.
when I play her, she schools me.
It's
Yeah.
about, sports is about what is the defense giving you if you're not playing against a course, which is still the same kind of thing. But in basketball in particular, it's really about like anything. You've got to get your skills down. Then you've got to know what the game plan is. In basketball, with five players on the floor, one person can really affect the outcome. Other
Hmm.
sports are a little bit harder. Baseball, you have a lot of players on the team. Football, when one player doesn't do something in football, could make the whole thing go wrong. So there's a lot of like intricacies to each sport. But basketball, the skill level of players today is pretty insane, over the years. They've just gotten more
Yep.
skilled and more skilled. So,
Totally. Totally.
so tell everyone out there, how can people get a hold of you? How can they, consume your content? What are the best ways to kind of see your stuff out there in the world?
Oh yeah. First of all, again, thank you and Ruben for inviting me to this. What a privilege, right? What a privilege. And I want to thank all the people that listen to the podcast. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you guys, um, not just my convictions, but hearing about some of my personal journeys as well. Yeah, come to my. You can find me at Charles T. Chen in LinkedIn, and just reach out to me. I love to talk through this sort of stuff. I've been there at the earlier part of my career trying to figure things out. Know that you're not alone in feeling that, but don't feel like you need to do all this on your own. You got to drive. We to succeed, you got to be the one leading the drive. But most of the seasoned executives, what we appreciate is effort. The moment we see you putting in the effort and thoughts, 9.9 out of 10 executives will do a lot to help you because we've been there and we recognize effort.
That's great.
And that's when one of the other adage I like to share is that luck favors those who are prepared because they're making the effort. When they reach out, someone will recognize that and the opportunity opens up, right?
Yeah.
An opportunity to partner, an opportunity to collaborate. And yeah, yeah. If I can share this with everybody too, that's the mantra my father lives by. My grandparents could not read or write, fled war-torn China, right? And he willed himself into the position he is today, but it's because of effort. And Yeah, and I wish that I just hope the honor and the respect that he taught me, I translate that to my kids. Yeah.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Charles. It's been wonderful having you on. You're such a dynamic
Thank you.
guy. You've got a wonderful background. You explain everything where people that are watching this can really pick up on what are the most important things with processes, sales, operations, how do you apply it, how the AI factor that you guys are experimenting with and using can be
Mhm.
brought to the forefront in terms of how to look at, statistical analysis and things like that. So it's been absolutely a fantastic conversation, and we really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. What an honor. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.